It was late 78, towards the end, and we recorded Bela Lugosi's Dead early the next year, 79. We wrote it in late 78, and that was our first recording. And so, yeah, it's the 39th anniversary of Bela Lugosi. But it's actually 40 years since the band started. So that is why we're going out to celebrate that, Peter and I, and two cohorts, John Andrews and Mark Slutsky. Great little band we got together, so yeah, looking forward to it. We played one gig in Guadalajara in Mexico about 2 months ago, which was a great launch. We had a really good reception. The band sounded great, and so it kind of set a nice tone, you know, for the rest of the tour, which starts. It continues, I should say, in about 4 days in Belgium. We're playing a big festival there. Then we go to Italy, and then we go to Portugal. And then there's a little break, and then we're going to do like a whole world tour. And it goes into next year. Well, we've never played in Australia, so really looking forward to that, and New Zealand as well. Russia, never played Russia. We recorded 5 total in one day, in 8 hours, and mixed them all in 8 hours. And Bela Lugosi was, of course, you know, the main track. And that was at Beck Studio in Wellingborough, which is near our hometown of Northampton. And I'm doing a special gig in a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks. I'm going back to Beck, and it'll be the first time that I've been back there since 1984, when I recorded an album called Crocodile Tears and the Velvet Cosh, and also some EPs after that. And we're going to set up a little intimate, super intimate gig, because it's a tiny studio in the studio. And then there'll be a Q&A there, and also I'll tell some stories about, you know, recording in that studio, in that space, which is still a functioning studio. They've revamped it a bit, but they've done it in a way, as far as I can gather, that's sort of respectful of the history and recognizes that. But it's, you know, the equipment's not quite as vintage as it was when I was last there. But I'm really looking forward to that event, yeah. We were shopping it around. Everybody was telling us it was too long to be a single. You know, it was like 9.5 minutes. And the only guy who really got it was Pete Stennett at Small Wonder Records. And by this time, I mean, we'd been taking it around to all the labels, and all of them said the same thing. It's really interesting and it's unique, but it's too long for a single. So we were actually starting to like second guess ourselves and thinking, maybe they're right, you know. And when Pete wanted to put it out, we said, should we edit it? He said, no way. And he used the example of the Velvet Underground's Sister Ray. He said, it's just like Sister Ray. You want to hear every second of it. This is a classic. It's a future classic, he said. So no, don't edit it. So he was very wise there. Yeah, so I think it was an extra track, yeah, because we were very influenced by reggae, especially dub. I mean, basically Bela was our interpretation of dub, so that's always been part of the mix. Well, we found the label goth very limiting, because we were very expansive and eclectic and exploratory. You know, we felt that was a limiting label, you know, because there was so much more to the band than that. It was very kind of restrictive. Sure, there was an element there that was gothic, of course, and we had a bit of fun with that, actually, but played with it. And sometimes we took it seriously when we needed to. Bauhaus was a lot broader in its scope, and we were always trying to expand and evolve, which we did, you know, over those 4 initial albums. Yeah, well, that certainly was an element that was in the mix for musicians of my generation, and most of them were exposed to reggae in the early 70s when we were young teenagers, you know, early teens, alongside things like T-Rex and David Bowie and Roxy Music. But reggae was huge in England at that time because of the immigrants coming in from Jamaica primarily in the 1950s, and then sort of setting up home in England, and then they would have their kids, you know, who would follow that music, but they would make it in a way that was influenced by England, especially London. There was a lot of West Indians in London, and London was a real stronghold for reggae, but also Northampton was. Northampton was big Rastafarian centre. Myself, Danny, and Kevin would go down to these clubs that were really like exclusively for the Rastas. We were literally the only male white faces in the throng. But we loved that and loved the music, and they would have toasting and these huge sound systems, and they'd have like goat's head soup. It was like real hardcore. They'd all be smoking spliff, ganja. The police would completely leave it alone because it wouldn't be worth interfering with. So it was like this autonomous free zone. It was a great space. After a few, sort of like sideways looks from the clientele, we were quickly accepted. And that was great, like just not feeling any friction. They kind of felt that we were cool, and we were just like there to appreciate the music, which we loved. And so that was quite influential on us as a band, it all seeped in. For me as a bass player as well, like reggae was hugely influential. There was a bass player called Errol Flabber Holt, who I noticed he was a session player, but his name was all over all the my favorite records. So I'd look up the band members, and sure enough, like bass, Errol Flabber Holt. So he was a big influence on me. Very like dub-styley. Well, we noticed that like on the couple of times when we have reformed and played tours, it's always great to see like a young contingent in the audience and a big contingent, like kids in their like late teens, early 20s, and really into it. So that's of course very gratifying. And I agree. I think the music is kind of outside of time. It is timeless, and it stands up really well. And I must say that just when I've been rehearsing myself at home and listening to this material again for the first time in 12 years, because that was the last time we played, I've been struck by how original it is, more so than ever. I'm hearing it with fresh ears, and I'm very into it, just like into the idea of going out there and playing it again. It feels right, and it feels good. And the two other musicians we've got, John Andrews and Mark Slutsky, they're fans of the band, and they're really talented players. And Peter and I are encouraging them to not just do a carbon copy of the record, but to bring their own character to bear, so that it has something new and fresh about it, and it keeps it very much alive. It's the essence of what's on the records, but it's taking it somewhere a little bit different, so it keeps it fresh. Yeah, it's actually in the 3rd edition, the memoir, Who Killed Mr. Moonlight, yeah. I hope so. If this one's nearly sold out, so it looks likely, yeah. Not in the serious ritualistic way that I describe in the book, but yes, but in a very subtle way. And it's more like visualization, positive visualization, and just setting intentions and allowing the subconscious to work to implement those intentions and just putting it out there. But I've always done that even before I recognized that it was magic as such. When I was a kid even, I had that inclination, but it was just focused through ritual magic, which really was introduced to me on a serious level by Alan Moore, who is obviously well known as a novelist, graphic novelist, and these days a wizard. And he certainly looks the part, bless him. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, genius, just taking it to a whole other level. And kudos to Mr. Lynch for holding out, in order to fully realize his vision. Amazing. Jack Parsons, because it's a bit of a thorn in my side, because I co-wrote a screenplay based on that book with my friend Don C. Tyler, and we wrote a bloody good script, and it was on the verge of getting the green light. There was a blinking amber going on there for a while, and then these other guys stepped in and they claimed the rights, and they pipped us to the post. But it's an amazing story, yeah, Jack Parsons. It's strange because, now when you hear the records, there's always a tinge of sadness because he's not with us anymore. There's also this thing of appreciating that music even more so because that there isn't going to be any more. So, yeah, mixed emotions there. I mean, it all poured out for me the night I got that news, and I wrote the song the day that David Bowie died, that night, and then recorded it the next day. And there was something palpable in the air, psychically, that day. And I think I and all the other musicians that played on that recording tapped into that. And it made the record sound as it does, which is, I think it sounds pretty special. Yeah, Patreon's been great. It's like a little club there, and I make it very exclusive, so the things that I release to the patrons you cannot get anywhere else, and I really do appreciate their support. Thank you, patrons. And it's allowed me to put out there things that are very obscure, like demos. You know, there's a lot of demos and obscure tracks. But as far as the records I've been working on and have been released and are set to be released, yeah, there are a number. One of which I'm really, really proud of. It's a collaboration with a band called Duende from Detroit. Really terrific band, very kind of garage psych. And this record is pretty psychedelic, but it has that gritty kind of Detroit sound. MC5 Stooges it's got that vibe, but I bring my own thing to it as well. It's kind of semi-spoken word. Some of it is complete spoken word. It's called The Oracle of the Horizontal, and it'll be released in October on the new Glass Records label, Glass Modern. And Glass was the label that released my album Crocodile Tears and a Velvet Cosh. Plus a bunch of EPs and a compilation called On Glass. And I'm very pleased that I was approached by Dave Barker, who basically is Glass. And he's reactivated the label. He's always had amazing ears. He's like a classic A&R man. And he's got some exciting records in the pipeline. And one of which is this album with Duende. Aside from that, I've just completed work on a new solo album. And that should be out. I've put it back because of the touring with Peter, which is extensive. So that album will now come out, I think, in May of next year, early May, or maybe April. So that's a solo record. And then there's another release which might come out this winter, which is based on an old track that I did about, 15 years ago, called Albino Dog. And there are different versions of this one track. The original features a duet with Mia Doi Todd. And it was just something that I've had on the shelf for a long time, just never really fit in with anything. But it's a very strong track. And the other versions, they're very cinematic, actually. And this guy, Tim Newman in England, has done some brilliant work on it. And just sort of extemporized on the theme of the original song. So that's another release that's pending. And there's a few others as well, but I don't want to spill the beans on those yet. But there's a lot of stuff there on, in the pipeline and on the back burner. So the kitchen's getting pretty hot and steamy with all this bubbling away, all this stuff in pans and back on the back burners, and yeah. I think we pretty much covered it. I'm very much looking forward to this world tour with Mr. Murphy, and he's in fine fettle. He's got his spirit burning brightly at the moment. So yeah, we'll see you out there on the road somewhere, I hope.